Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're going all the way back to a vintage performance of Summertime, and this happened back in March 2019. And when you see the video, you'll know what I'm on about. We've got Billy Strings and Marcus King here. I've featured these two independently on my channel, so look for those videos, but never together, and this is them just at Carter Vintage Guitars. So let's get the guys up on screen and see how they get on.
One, two. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping, the cotton is high. Your pappy's rich and your mama's good looking. Hush, little baby, honey, don't you cry. One of these mornings you rise up singing. Honey, spread out your wings and take to the sky. Until that day, honey, hush up your crying. Your mama and your pappy, honey, they're standing by.
There we go. I'm just going to jump in here because it's one of those videos you don't want to stop because there's so much going on. And Billy, when he comes in with his voice, he's got such a distinctive voice, and it's almost like you're not expecting it to look at him. For some reason, you get that with some singers that just sound totally different to how you were expecting the voice to come out. But looking at Marcus, the way that he plays at the beginning and his overall style, he's like a town of blues that's got a jazz river running through it. It sounds weird to describe it like that, but that's how I see it, because some of the blues lines that he comes up with that just somehow blend into that jazz. It's so cool the way he throws it together, because you always think you know where he's going, and then he just tweaks it at the end really tastefully all the time. And rewind it back to the beginning if you want to, just to listen to Marcus's first lead section, where everything that he's playing is at a different dynamic range, and we're talking about notes within runs here. He's not just picking at the same volume the whole time, he's putting that expression in there so that he'll be really light with certain notes, and then he'll just accent those notes that he wants just to pop out, and he's just very much playing with the feel and however he wants that line and that run to sound, and whichever part he wants to pop out, he'll just throw that in there just instinctively. And it's so great to listen to when you've got two guitarists in their own right here that are absolute top level. And Marcus can sing, by the way. He can, boy, can he sing. Watch my other video to check him out, because he's got such a great bluesy voice. And Billy has got one of those classic, almost bluegrass country voices, and he's like an old-time voice, like I said, not what you're expecting. Another thing that Marcus does is that when he gets into his rhythm playing, he uses that hybrid picking, but he also palms that pick so that he uses the thumb and then second finger and third finger, so he's getting that advantage of the soft sound on the root notes now with that thumb rather than the more aggressive sound of the pick. Again, changing up the dynamics of his rhythm play as well as his lead playing. So it's always going to provide such an interesting foundation for any lead that's then going to be played over the top by Billy. The advantage of changing to that hybrid picking and fingerstyle is that you can now pedal between the root note of your chord and the rest of the chord. So especially in jazz where you get that dum-bap, da-dum-bap, da-dum-bap, you get that kind of bounce to it in terms of the groove, and you can now do that whilst you're playing. When you're doing it with a pick, sometimes it's a little bit too aggressive if you are jumping from that root note to the chord, and you might want that punchy sound of picking thumb, first finger, second finger, and third finger, so the whole of your chord all at once, rather than with a pick. Of course, you're going to get that delayed reaction from the strings as you strike down on them. It's not going to be a punchy chord. So great use of that in order to really lay down the groove. And when we get into Billy's playing, again, really cool lines here, really interesting lines as well, and being played on that acoustic, of course, nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to hide anyway here because these tones are absolutely clean cut. And with Billy's playing, just the way that he picks through so accurately in order to get such a concise sound, it is really impressive. Obviously, these guys make it look so easy, and it's when they add that expression that it really does make it such an impressive performance that you just want to listen to the whole time, because you don't know where they're going to take it next. And we've just had that little look from Billy to Marcus, just signifying that this is the time that they're going to change lead. And it's funny because Marcus isn't even looking, but this is what happens with top musicians, is that they can feel when it's the right time to then swap over. And generally, when you are very well versed in playing and jamming, and these guys, by the way, absolutely old school musicians, even though they're young, they are really of that old breed of learning to play an instrument to the top level, but then also having the ability to sing. And this kind of talent, you still can find it out there, and here is the proof. But let's get back into it. Marcus taking over the lead.
Them old catfish, yeah, they're jumping. The cotton is high. Your pappy's rich, and your mama's good looking. Hush, little baby, honey, don't you cry. I said, hush, little baby, don't you cry. Yeah, man.
I just want to leave that bit in at the end when he just says, yeah, man. It's like, yeah, that was good. And Billy and Marcus, the great thing about their playing is that obviously they've got all that rhythm work down and playing dynamically with their rhythm, but playing dynamically with lead, again, just holding down a lead solo on your own is so difficult. It takes so much practice in order to be as well versed as these guys are, just designated lead guitarists as well as rhythm players. And I think that a lot of artists nowadays who are signed to big labels, and you might call them pop stars, but the mainstream kind of artists, the problem that people have got with them is that they don't have a wide skill set. And this is something that especially the older generation would have grown up with. They would have grown up watching a guitar player play rhythm, play a great lead break, and then have a great voice. And sometimes play keys as well. They had such a wide skill set because they'd worked on so many different aspects, and they had to in order to be the best and shine more than the other bands that were around at the time. At that time, it wasn't about what you looked like because the main competition was on the radio where you never got to see a face. So you literally got judged on what you sounded like. This is the proof that there are still old school guys out there who are approaching it from that angle of learning the craft, learning all the skills you can, and absolutely maxing them out as much as you can with as much practice as you can fit in. Billy and Marcus certainly fall into that category. They might not be as well known as some of the big pop stars, but it's just because they've got something that is worth more. Somebody that can sing and play an instrument to the top level, they can make that instrument sing. So it's like listening to two artists at once. And that's what you don't get from a lot of mainstream artists. It's just a voice, and you just get that one voice, and often the songs weren't written by them in the first place. So in terms of being able to connect with you about their personal story, again, it's going to be really tough when somebody else handed you the bit of paper to sing about what they went through. And these kind of artists are great because you just get all of it from one person. That's another thing to point out during this whole performance, is that Billy and Marcus have put their lead lines together so that they're never repeating phrases, they're never getting lost. All of their lead has a point to it, and it is melodic, and it is so difficult to throw something together that is going to be interesting to listen to, especially with no effects on there. Just all the interest is in the melody and in the technique. If you're listening to that vibrato and the little parts they put in there, the dynamic changes, as I said about Marcus and Billy, they're both throwing in great dynamic changes in their lead playing. And it is so subtle, but of course this is all going to fly under the radar because we just get the opportunity to sit back and relax and enjoy the performance. And for those of you interested in the guitars, as this was being played at Carter Vintage Guitars, Billy had his hands on a 1936 Martin 00028, and Marcus was playing a 1954 Telecaster. So don't drop those guitars, guys, because that's some serious guitars going on there, and you could see the labels that were still attached to them, because I'm not sure what they'd fetch, but probably a pretty penny. But anyway, thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!